for a neighborhood.
It is.
I mean,
It really is.
it's not appropriate for a neighborhood if that's what he intends to do.
Yeah.
It's not.
But he building it, I don't know, he built it and stuff. and
It's
Mr.
up.
Barrett-
It's up.
And the association said, this is, how did this get built here? In a residential area?
Yeah, because initially I thought it was a house, but it's not a house. I drove by, there was a car sitting in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't on us. Somebody, well, you've been on council before, you know what happened, and we got to know. We know.
I know.
We'll make sure we don't
I
have
know.
it. We'll get everyone for this one. My apologies.
How you doing, young lady? Okay, is that a big flag?
No, that's just.
And normally Carlos and Elsie are switched, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing, Dean?
Doing well, how are you?
Good. You have a twofer this week, don't you?
What's that?
Two applications with HCC. Is it your house? Is that your house?
Oh, just one?
One application, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's on the docket for Wednesday.
I thought that already happened. Oh, that's next week?
Yeah, this week.
Wednesday.
Oh, when?
Yeah.
That's this week.
Yeah.
It's the third week or?
Is it the
Yeah,
same
it's
week as
weird.
ours?
No, not.
It's pushed back a week because.
Oh, because I thought it already happened, yeah.
No, we didn't have enough time for last month, and so we just needed some additional time, and I think Corey needed a few things, but, and the Planning Commission and HCC are both pushed back a week, because we were at state conference earlier.
Oh, okay. Do I need to be there? Because the people who are doing the work are,
If they're there,
Fine.
you're good, someone should be there. but-
yeah, they're gonna be doing it.
Yeah,
Okay, I mean, I could show up, but,
but they're gonna be representing you, so
Yeah.
as long as you're comfortable with that.
okay.
My legs look like I'm. No, the seats are up so high with the desk that you can literally.
You know what? My chair is so low.
I guess we're not gonna wait for, Bueno and Kirkendall?
Put the little thing on the side there, you can let it down.
I'll call the October 16th ZBA meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
May,
Present.
McClellan,
Present.
Bueno, Bavacqua,
Here.
Kirkendorf, Burke,
Here.
and Anderson.
Here.
Okay. We do have quorum this evening, Chair.
All right. Are there any official communications?
There are no official communications at this point, but I just want to remind the ZBA, if you don't mind, as we make motions and seconds this evening, if we could just recap who made those, that would help us a lot in the minutes. Thank you.
All right, and we're going to review the minutes for approval. I wasn't here, so I'll abstain.
And Chair, if I may add for this, we did make a small minor modification to the approval of the minutes. There wasn't the motion second in the email packet, but it has been corrected for your printed packet tonight, so.
Are there any suggestions for any other changes? Is there a motion?
I move for approval of the August 21st ZBA minutes.
Second by Burke.
So there's a motion to approve by McClellan and a second by Burke. Roll call, please.
May,
Yes.
McClellan,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Abstain.
Burke,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
And is there any old business?
There is no old business this evening.
Okay. And on to new business.
Justin Curry has this case.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone, and happy Monday. Today, we are going to be discussing variance ZBA 23-020 And this is the applicant here before us today, Mr. Will McNeil, owner of McNeil Automotive LLC. The address here we happen to have is 520 East Columbia Avenue, parcel ID 14163266028. And the request for this variance today is the lower front facade transparency. The applicant is requesting approval for a dimensional variance that would lower the mandatory 65% transparency criteria for the front facade. To comply to this ordinance, they are pursuing a variance of 465 square feet, which is equivalent to 29.6%. A little bit of context for the applicant here today. The property is positioned south of Columbia Avenue and east of Jocelyn Avenue. The site consists of an existing automobile facility. The applicant recently received approval for special exception and site plan by the Planning Commission to construct a 6,715 square feet addition at the south wall of the existing building. And the applicant is requesting a dimensional variance to lower the mandatory 65% transparency requirement for the front facade. Specifically, the new front facade, which faces Jocelyn Avenue, west elevation measuring at 1,575 square feet and 465 square feet of transparency, has already been incorporated for the clear glass installation. So for the next slide here, we do happen to have an image of the parcel. And as you can see here, to the left, we happen to have Columbia and,
Reverse that.
excuse me, Columbia, Jocelyn.
Yep.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mark. All right, moving forward. This is a image and site layout here of the applicant's building. And as you can see here, we happen to have the facing front facade here of Jocelyn and the other image here and a street image of the location. So for the zoning code information, we have the building transparency, minimum first floor transparency. The minimum transparency on the first floor facade shall be 40% for buildings with non-residential first floor use. Proportion of openings, buildings openings, including doors and windows, shall be square or vertical proportion except on the first floor front facade, where windows may have a horizontal proportion. Individual windows with a vertical proportion may be grouped together even if the group of windows will have an overall horizontal proportion. The ground floor glass, all ground floor windows shall use transparent, non-reflective, non-tinted glass. And I'm not going to go through each of the standards of approval here because we do happen to have them referenced within the staff report, but I will turn your attention here to the summary points. And we begin with the first. Nothing is preventing the applicant from building that transparency on this front facade, according to staff. But for security reasons, he is requesting a variance. Transparency is not typically seen for automotive facilities, except for a few that have customer-facing entrances. Granting this variance will not bestow any exclusive privileges upon this property that are not enjoyed by other properties. This property is designed for auto services, unlike most neighboring properties, and this distinction arises from the applicant's request for a specific land use. The applicant is making diligent efforts to ensure transparency and compliance with regulations. The plight of the applicant is not due to any unique circumstances of the property. Rather, the transparency requirements found in the zoning ordinance do not take into consideration unique land use types such as automotive services. The applicant has expressed security concerns once again, and the approval of this variance will enable them to enhance the security of their facility beyond what would be possible if the facade transparency requirement remained just at 40%. Moving forward here, the issue prompting the applicant to request a dimensional variance to reduce the transparency requirement is self-created because it is not a physical hardship involved in the property to comply with the code. However, it's important to note that the variance being sought aligns with the intended typical front facade design for an automobile facility. The applicant's request for a dimensional variance on transparency doesn't align with zoning standards. Nevertheless, it's common for automobile service facilities to have limited transparency except for the front entryway facade when considering land uses. This ordinance establishes crucial criteria for the Zoning Board of Appeals when considering variance requests. The must ensure that variances do not obstruct light and air access for neighboring transparencies, contribute to street congestion, pose for fire or public safety risk, harm property values, or negatively affect the public's well-being. This stringent evaluation aims to safeguard the community and its resident from potential adverse impacts. And staff has a few recommendations here. If the ZBA feels that the applicant's request meets the standards of approval, they may consider approval of the variance. If the ZBA feels that the applicant's request meets the standards of approval, they may consider postponement, that's not right, with the following conditions. And if the ZBA does not feel the applicant's request meets the standards of approval, they may consider denial of the variance. And we have 3 sample motions here. I move to approve the dimensional variance at 520 East Columbia Street to allow for a facade with a 29.6% first floor transparency. And motion to deny, I move to motion the dimensional variance at 520 East Columbia Street based on the following findings of fact. And the last, I move to postpone the dimensional variance at 520 East Columbia until the regularly scheduled November 20th ZBA meeting for the applicant to provide the following information. And just as a point of reference here from staff, before we happen to go on to the questions, going back to the previous slide here, under the 6, when we're talking about public safety and welfare, the level of transparency does not affect the public safety and welfare of the residents within proximity of this area, whether it is residential or commercial. And I present questions here if you have any.
And thank you, Justin. I'm going to just summarize his points. The applicant has gotten a special exception approval and a site plan approval. There's already an existing McNeil automotive site. They're looking to expand more than double what they have. It is a different zoning district, so it is, the existing is in C3, the C1 is on the current zoning district that they're looking to expand upon. And the only thing that they're requesting a variance tonight is the transparency. So, and in staff's review, and I don't want to paraphrase anything, but we have a very blanket zoning code when it comes to the transparency required along thoroughfares. It's irregardless of the land use. And so the applicant's request is really for security purposes. And you're not seeing glass at a lot of automotive facilities, except where there's a customer-facing entrance. Now, staff did analyze all 7 of those standards, and I think for the ZBA debate, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for administration?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I know where this is at. You said the east side of the street, right?
It's the west side.
It's the west side? And how they plan on expanding that now? Which part are they going to, because the front face is over there, face,
Can I have the highlighter?
yeah,
Okay.
kind of lay that
That's
out.
to your right. No, you. So I know it's a little smaller. Next time we can have this a little larger. So this is the site right here. This is Columbia. This is Joslin. This is the existing building. I know it doesn't stand out that much, and then there's parking on the north side along Columbia and parking right here.
Right.
So what they're looking to do is expand this section The variance request is along this red line, which is the line right here along this along the facade, and then they would expand the parking. And then they have a small stormwater detention. So this is really the property to the south between, I forgot, is that Second Avenue? What's this? Fourth Avenue, the street to the south that's here. So does that help answer the question with where they're expanding?
Okay, they're going, facing, Columbia, they're gonna go south.
Yep.
Oh, okay then.
Or if you're on Joslin looking at the building from the street, they're expanding to the left. So,
Don't they have quite a bit of land in the back there? Okay, that's what I was asking, man, they can't move out front there and can't move to the east. They're gonna have to, move to the back there. Yeah, so, okay, I got that.
Any other questions?
And how long will that building, they're stretching it out? That what you see right now, where would that be facing?
that view is facing Joslin.
Okay, so they're gonna just redo that
Yep.
and then go backwards in the other part of the,
Yeah.
okay.
So when you're on Columbia, you're not really going to notice a difference from the street.
Right.
These changes are really affecting the Joslin side and the Fourth Street side.
Okay. I got you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Has there been any security issues to date that I understand, as you build up new and it becomes attractive, but to date, has there been any issues that have come up?
Yeah, if we don't mind asking the applicant, we can probably get some clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, to the podium,
Okay.
please. And state your name and address.
If you hit the right button, you can turn the microphone on.
All right, how's that?
Perfect.
Timothy Brodowski, acting on behalf of the applicant. I'm his architect of record. And yes, Mr. McNeil was even a little apprehensive on some of the glass where we have it currently at a higher elevation, just based on security issues that he has had in the past. And, we I kind of also want to point out too that yes, this doorway that you see on kind of the right-hand side, everything got a little bit scrunched in, I believe, for this slide, but that is his new entrance. So the current lobby that you see kind of with the blue awning up top, that's going away. It's a tiny little spot where folks walk in and there's a counter and all that. So it's essentially going away, and then the new lobby is much more spacious. And is located with the glass entry door and the glass side lights, if you would, and the glass above. So,
Any more questions for the applicant representative? Is there a motion?
So we have to open up a public hearing first.
Yes. Yeah. We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion?
Yep. I'm going to make a motion. Yeah. I move to approve the dimensional variance at 520 East Columbia Street to allow for a facade with 29.6% first floor transparency based on the findings of fact in the staff report, especially due to the fact that this is an automotive use.
I second that motion.
So we have a motion from Burke and a second from May. Roll call, please.
Anderson. Burke.
Yes.
Bavacqua.
Yes.
Bueno.
Yes.
McClellan.
Yes.
May.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next
The
item-
applicant has waited a long time at planning commission meetings for his items, so this is much easier tonight.
See how easy that was.
They've been a reputable, place, in our community for a long time.
Yes, indeed.
Right in the community.
I agree.
Sorry you couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah.
Everybody's on, way we work with the community and people that don't have the money sometimes.
I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. General public comment. We'll open general public comment. Would anybody like to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Next item is miscellaneous. Do we have any miscellaneous items?
We do not.
Anyone on the board want to
A couple
speak?
of questions on this case we just heard. When we have a property that
Mike. Happens to all of us.
when we have a property that expanded into a different zone, the addition was in C3, so you follow the rules of C3 or does C1 govern? How does that work?
So the 100% of this expansion is in the C1 zone, and this is a land use that could
It
have
was in the
been.
C3 zone. The expansion.
If I have that backwards, forgive me. Irregardless, the expansion both allowed through the same process through a special exception. So this is a case where typically you'd like to see a uniform rezoning, but we did not find it required him to go through that process. It's able to survive as it'd be unduly to be able to rezone to make it uniform. I think the city would look at if we're doing a blanket adoption of a zoning map in the future, we may look to consolidate land uses where you have situations like this, but the special exception process allowed it. Now, there are other situations that we view it as one site, so there needs to be a suitable zoning district for all portions of the site. There was a rezoning earlier this year for a medical marijuana facility on East Walden, and it had an incorrect zoning district, so they did have to rezone it because of being one site. But in staff's opinion, and I think we reached out to legal on this, it was suitable to keep the multiple zoning districts for the expansion.
So in this particular case, did you use the rules for C1 of the 65%?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you kind of already alluded to it, the 65% is just blanket, no matter what you put on, whatever building's going on. Is there do other cities or anything like that have a better way to join that?
I think we're going to explore that. I think we're going through some zoning text amendments, a lot of them. Right now, we're not doing cleanup ones at the moment. But when we do a cleanup, I think we're going to evaluate whether there is the opportunity. But we want to make sure, whether it's the old master plan or the current master plan, that we're still aligning with some of our goals for our corridors and thoroughfares and stuff like that. So I don't think we have a draft at the moment, but I think something that is a little bit more achievable for different types of land uses may be helpful, because it gives them something a little closer that they might be able to design to, as opposed to 65%. I mean, 65% for a car wash is a lot of transparency. 65% for an automobile service, yep. So.
Then the last item, it's kind of a little late now, because I'm sorry, I apologize, I was late. On the minutes from last meeting, on the car wash, the last item regarding the screening of the equipment. I believe the motion was to deny the request, and everybody voted to deny the request. I don't believe it's written that way in the minutes.
If you want to make a motion right now, to amend the minutes, I think we can do that. If you want to give everyone a chance to open to that.
It was,
And this would be on case C, variance CBA 23-017. I think I see what you mean.
Oh, yeah. The way
I read it, I can't find it right now. here it is. Yeah, it was on the last motion of variance ZBA 23-017. The request was to grant a variance to not screen the roof equipment.
So it was a motion to deny the variance. Is that
That's correct.
okay?
And everybody voted to deny the request.
Right.
So the motion passed, but the variance failed is a better way to, yep. Okay.
So I didn't want it that everybody voted. It was made a motion to grant him the variance.
That is appropriate. So, if you would like to make a motion with that change and approve it, we can incorporate that before it gets published, so.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion that the last motion of this ZBA 23-017 be revised to show that the motion was to deny the request, and the motion was granted to deny.
Is there a second? I wasn't here.
McClellan, I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Bueno and a second from McClellan. Roll call, please.
May,
Yes. Even though I wasn't here, but I understand what he's saying.
It's just the way it's written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How it's written in
you are not required to be here to vote on
Oh,
minutes.
okay, so
Yep.
yes.
McClellan,
Yes.
Bueno,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Burke, Anderson. All right, 6-0. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Are there any more miscellaneous questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to staff communication, staff communications.
Okay. Just a few small things. I did want to update this board. At Planning Commission this month, we had 4 zoning text and/or map amendments, and I'm just going to highlight what's coming forward. So we've been busy. We have a zoning marijuana, just a few amendments. Because that was removed, the referendum was removed, it will not be for a public vote in November. So that, there is a technicality that is still staying at Planning Commission before that goes to City Council, but that's currently under review. The city zoning map. We are adopting a new city zoning map. I'm working with our communications team to, we had our Planning Commission public hearing. This is not a rezoning. This is an adoption of a new map. We have gone back in records for 10 years, gone back a bunch of rezonings, a bunch of conditional rezonings that they didn't actually follow the terms and build, and so it reverted back to the original zoning. So we are having a process very similar to a zoning map amendment to allow the public, if you think that there's a rezoning or if you think your property's listed incorrectly, there's thousands and thousands of parcels in Pontiac. We've already made a few changes at part of the public hearing process, but and I'm going to be giving a presentation as well as the first and second reading. So we're also going to be having a web map and a PDF for everyone to review as well. So. And then there were 2 other city-initiated items. So the first one is that there are 3 neighborhoods. One is the neighborhood east of here. One is the neighborhood between Osmond and South Boulevard, Woodward, and MLK. And the third one is the neighborhood to the west of the M1 concourse. All 3 of these neighborhoods, close to downtown or Woodward, all of them extremely high vacancy, like no house on it rate. The demographics of those neighborhoods, 10 to 30% below in the average income and the average property value compared to the rest of Pontiac. And so there is an interested developer who has an option with the county, not really with the city at the moment, but we decided to create this residential infill overlay district. And it allows smaller homes, so normally 1,200 square feet is the minimum. It would allow 700 square feet. But you have some higher architectural standards. You also would be allowed a duplex, minimum 700 square feet per unit, higher architectural standards. Some of this is just enhancing the porch or offsets, windows being used as architectural features. Vinyl being of 0.5 millimeters, which is, we're still allowing vinyl, but it's a higher quality. What this is doing is it's attempting to stabilize these neighborhoods and not have them depreciate anymore. We hoped we'd see a small bump, but it's allowing some flexibility and an incentive. So if someone wants to build a 1,200 square foot home, they could build it under typical residential standards, but this is allowing some flexibility. So that went to Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommended approval. However, we did talk about accessory dwelling units, and that was in the proposal. Planning Commission wants to review that further, so they removed that. They're going to be debating about accessory dwelling units in those 3 neighborhoods, and accessory dwelling units are granny flats, mother-in-law suites, and so we're going to be working with them to debate that before going forward. The other one has to do with mobile food trucks and temporary uses. We have a mobile food truck ordinance. We have some temporary use ordinances, but they lacked a lot of clarity and created a lot of confusion. And so the proposal was passed by recommended approval by Planning Commission. It's going to City Council. It establishes rules for mobile food trucks. Now, they all need to get a city license. They all need to, the ones that are food trucks, some are mobile food vendors, but the ones that are food trucks have to be inspected by the fire department. And then it allows the rules for zoning districts. So, if you're in a residential zone, it can only be in parks and community centers and schools between the hours of 8 and 8. And there needs to be an annual zoning permit. So that puts a little onus on the property owner that there needs to be a zoning certificate for you to operate a mobile food truck there or a mobile food vendor. Now, we also clarified what is a temporary use, what's a special event. If you have more than 3 food trucks, if you're doing fireworks, if you're doing alcohol, if you're doing a large entertainment area, if you're doing more than 200 people, any of those classify, we're calling that a new term, a temporary use major, and that's what our special events have been. And then anything less than that would be, the less than that would be a minor, a temporary use minor. The minor ones would not have as much review, but we would ensure that there would be pre-application meetings, and we'd meet with police and fire, engineering, right away, public works, for that. So we're just trying to clarify, we want events in the city, we want food trucks in the city, but we want to make sure it's in a controlled manner. The other thing I didn't mention about mobile food trucks is that we have introduced a new land use called a mobile food parklet. A parklet is like a tiny park, and I know that there's interest for this, but we've created an overlay district called the Mobile Food Parklet Overlay District, and it's on Huron, Woodward, and downtown. And it allows for someone to go through an administrative site plan to actually have a permanent location with curb and benches and lighting and landscaping that mobile food trucks can come operate. Now, the mobile food trucks there have to be licensed through the city still, but it allows that as a land use. It still has to be separated away from restaurants. That it's 100 feet in downtown, 150 feet for the rest of the city, unless you have the restaurants ridden authorization. So that's just one of many just initiatives I think we want to have in placemaking. This doesn't take place in many restaurants. It in some ways it may act like a fast food restaurant, but we just want to ensure that they have the opportunity to grow in the city. So, and it's probably a good thing for residents and visitors because this is a place to go for food trucks. Because sometimes in their business operations, they're constantly changing where they're going, and to have a place where you have multiple, it may become a destination where you have multiple food trucks. So,
question for you on that. So, would the landowner have to put in a certain amount of infrastructure to qualify for this?
Yep. So
that would include benches and
parking. Yep, exactly. Paved parking, things like that. So it would follow under our site plan guidelines. There wouldn't be a principal structure in that case, but it would just ensure that it met our regulations. So,
would fencing be allowed without a structure?
Fencing would be allowed in that situation because I think it's an established principal use that's permitted there. This is a little different than residential properties with fencing because this is the principal use, and we still have buffer yards. The buffer yard requirements would not change with any other similar land use depending on the zoning district. So,
good job. Thank you.
And the last thing I want to say is that this is more of a non-update, but we gave the applicant for the fence variance for the church on Pearsall, I think 90 days. That date is approaching, and so I would expect that either there's going to be no action and we're going to be moved back to enforcement, or we should see it at next month's meeting. So.
Yeah, they have a fence going. I think they might have squashed it.
So the fence was installed. Is it no longer there?
Yeah, well, that one fence, but they moved forward with their
The neighbors
project.
did build their fence too. Yep.
Yes.
So,
They moved forward with their project.
yeah.
Do we know if they got city approval for their project? For their
The
fence?
neighbors did.
Yeah,
Yes.
neighbors did.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and then last thing I want to say two things. We should approve the calendar at next month's meeting for 2024. While we may move around for a couple, holidays or something like that, we'll try to keep it on the third Monday as much as we can. And then I want to introduce Paul Harang to ZBA. He's a planner with us and is working with Justin. We're very excited to have him on staff. He has many years working for the city of Detroit, and he's a welcome addition. So,
Welcome.
and we also thank Justin for being here while he's on a little fall break, and at least until next year. So,
Hey, Mark, just one quick question back
Sure.
on those food trucks. The county health department, where do they play a role in that? I know they have to get inspected by the fire department, but
yeah, that doesn't change.
Okay.
And we think that there's a pretty good enforcement. We feel that mobile food vendors are getting their health permits, and that would not change at all. So,
okay, good,
Yep.
thank you.
We still have Corey?
we still have Corey. He just has a night off. He's working hard. So, no, we have 4 planners plus Carla Cade, who's our now planning technician. So, I'm very thankful we're at full staff. And there's a lot of training in these first few months and getting alignment and whatnot within our staff reports, within our process, and getting that out to the applicants. But I look forward to being more proactive with projects as we move forward. So,
One quick question on your little house plan, plot, whatever. you
Mike.
called it.
Mike,
Tiny
Mike.
homes. Is there requirements for basements or garages or?
So the question is with these, are there requirements for basements or garages? There are not. There are certain guidelines for parking, or if you have garages, but it's not a requirement. So, and what the developer who's looking to bring them in is actually looking at a 2-story structure where the parking's underneath and the house is above. And I just want to clarify, because these are tiny homes are generally 300 to 600 feet. These are not tiny homes. They are smaller homes. We're calling them cute cottages in an unofficial way, but these proposals are not for container homes or tiny homes at the moment. I think we're willing to keep the door open for that conversation as a city if we want that, throughout the city or in certain locations. But this is just for a smaller footprint. So.
Yeah, I think that Detroit, I think there's a tiny home community in
Yep.
Cass, right, down in Detroit.
Yeah.
It's done
And-
fairly well.
Micah 6, which is the Webster School, you had an article in Cranes a few months ago, and we're actually about to have a conversation later this week about the potential for a tiny home village. And so I think at this point it's just on discussion level to see how this would get done, if it would get done, and to get that support. So.
Excellent.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that you guys are looking at different options, alternatives.
And it's a challenge for us as a city, because some people are used to the same, single family residential neighborhood. And so I think for us, it's a challenge to educate people, to provide opportunities, get renderings of, existing examples. The more information you can share, hopefully that more it helps get that buy-in and get that understanding. Because without that, sometimes there's, fear, and which is a natural reaction sometimes from the public. So,
But the market has changed drastically over the years. The cost of housing, across the country is astronomical. People don't necessarily have the income that they would need to be able to afford even 1,200 square feet, yet they could still be good homeowners and and good members of the community, and, you know, it's nice that we're gonna look to give people some opportunity, so
Yep.
that's good. All right, any other, comments or, oh, I guess we're still in staff communications, so you're done?
Justin, anything you have? No? Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right, I guess, all those who approve
Is
say
there
aye.
a second on that?
Do we need a second on an adjournment
I
motion?
second.
All right. Wonderful.
All right, all those who approve say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Justin, excellent job on the presentation. Very clear, very easy to
You'll
understand.
keep us abreast